All right, this is evaluating expressions, which is our first unit's homework 6 page. All right, let's get started. So in this, they are giving us a value for the variable, which has to be substituted in. It's very important, especially with negative numbers, that whenever you're raising something to an exponent, you put it in parentheses. So I'm going to do 4 squared minus 3 times 4 plus 8. Think about the PEMDAS, parentheses or any grouping symbol, exponents, multiply and divide left to right, add and subtract left to right. So the first thing I'll do is this exponent. That gives me 16 minus 3 times 4 plus 8. Multiplication comes next. Remember that negative sign in front of that 3, that minus sign, it belongs to the 3. So when you multiply, you're multiplying negative 3 times 4, which is negative 12. Finally, I do my addition and subtraction. What comes first is subtraction. I'll get 4 plus 8, which equals 12. Number 2, in place of the x, I'm going to put a 4 squared minus 4 times y, which is negative 3, all divided by 2. Order of operation says I do this exponent first. That'll give me 16 minus 4 times negative 3 divided by 2. Negative 4 times negative 3 is what comes next, multiplication. So I leave this 16 alone. And I get negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Finally, I'm going to add that. That gives me 28 divided by 2, which is 14. Number 3 has absolute value bars. Absolute value bars are a grouping symbol, so you must do what's inside of them first and then evaluate the absolute value. 6 minus 8. One's positive, one's negative. Different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. So I'm going to get a negative 2. Now when I evaluate this absolute value, which means distance from 0, negative 2 is 2 units away. So I'll have 4 times 2. Finally, I multiply, and that gives me 8. All right, I did notice a lot of people got this one wrong. Whenever you place a negative 5 in front of an exponent, you must put that into parentheses. Those of you that did not, there was a lot of people that did negative 5 squared in the calculator and they got a negative 25. That is wrong. You must put it in parentheses so that you get the correct answer, which is positive 25. In place of that S is a negative 2. Once again, put that in parentheses. In place of T is 10. And I still have the minus 10. This exponent comes first. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4 times 10 minus 10. Multiplication is next. 40 minus 10 equals 30. 4p squared plus 7q cubed. 4 in place of the p in parentheses, put negative 2 squared plus 7, and in place of the q, you're going to put a negative 3. You must put that in parentheses. What happens first is our exponents. Here and here is what I'm going to do. Leave that 4 alone. Negative 2 squared, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Negative 3 squared is negative 27. Now I'm going to do the multiplication. 16, I can do this multiplication here as well, which is, what number am I on? 6? Hold on, did I do these backwards? I did these backwards. Oops, I'm so sorry. Forget everything I just did. I put the variables in the wrong places. That was my mistake. I apologize. In place of P is the negative 3 squared. In place of Q is the -2 cubed. All right, now let's do those exponents. I leave the 4 alone. -3 times -3 is 9. Leave the 7 alone. -2 cubed is -8. Now I do the multiplications. That gives me 36 plus -56. If you wrote this as -56, that's okay. But if you put the plus, make sure you put the negative in parentheses. So now I have a positive and a negative, different signs, subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. 56 is bigger, so my final answer is negative, and 56 minus 36 is 20. Next, in place of the A, I'm going to put a 6. In place of the B, a -8. And the whole thing gets squared. So the first thing I do is what's inside. 6 plus -8. Different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. Keep that in parentheses. -2 squared is a +4. 5, and in place of the x is a -1. You must put that in parentheses. Minus y squared, which is -4, put that in parentheses. I do my exponents first. I'm going to leave this 5 alone. -1 squared is +1. Here, I'm going to do my -4 squared, which gives me a +16. But what I want you to think about is the fact that there was a minus in front. That needs to stay there. And that would give me a +16. So 5 minus 16, keep the sign of the bigger number and subtract -11. In place of the A, inside of parentheses, put your -9 squared. In place of B, -6 squared. In place of C, -20. Exponents come first. I'm going to do this, then this. -9 times -9 is 81. Bring down this minus sign. -6 times -6 is +36. But because there was a minus in front, it has to stay there. Then, let me just bring the rest of this down. 3 times -20. So next is my multiplication. So that leaves me 81 minus 36, and +3 times -20 is -60. Subtract left to right. 81 minus 36 is 45 minus 60. Now when I take the sign of the bigger number and subtract, I get a -15 for my final answer. All right, number 10 has absolute value bars. We have to keep them there. Remember, absolute value is a number's distance from 0. It's also considered a grouping symbol. So I need to do what's inside first and then evaluate it. So here, I'm going to do a -10 plus 5, keep the sign of the bigger number, and subtract. That leaves me a -5 squared. Now I find the absolute value of -5, which is a +5. Next is my exponent, and that'll give me 3 times 25. Anytime you're dealing with 25, think about quarters, 3 quarters, because a quarter is worth 25 cents. So this would be 75. 3 times 25 is 75. All right. The last two are a little bit longer, so let me make myself some space. All right. 2 in place of x, in parentheses, is -3. In place of x is still -3. In place of y is -2. In place of this y, inside of parentheses, put your -2 cubed. First thing that's going to happen here is our exponents. I'm going to do this exponent and this exponent. -3 times -3 is +9. I want to leave the rest of it alone. -2 cubed is a -8. Next thing I want to do is my multiplication left to right. That'll give me 18 minus 5 times -3 times -2. And this minus and negative is going to end up becoming a plus. Now I want to multiply here. -5 times -3 is +15. I still have this -2 plus 8. Do this multiplication. 18. 15 times -2 is -30 plus 8. 18 minus 30 is -12 plus 8. Keep the sign of the bigger number and subtract. -4. The last one. In place, this one's a little tricky. There is a negative out in front of the A. Leave that there. In place of A, inside of parentheses, you put your -4. In place of the B, -2, and that is to the 4th power. -2 times C cubed. C is -3, put it in parentheses. So we're going to do all of our exponents first. Here, here, here. Leave this negative sign there. -4 times -4 is +16, but because there was a negative out in front, it's still there. -2 to the 4th is going to give me 16. -3 cubed gives me a -27. Now I'm going to do all of my multiplications left to right, multiplication and division left to right. I start with this one, so I'm leaving this -16 out in front. 7 times 16 is 112. Here I have a -2 times a -27. Negative times a negative, same signs are positive, different signs are not. So that is going to give me a 54, a +54. Add and subtract going left to right. 112 minus 16. I'm sorry, yeah. It's a -16 plus 112. And that gives me 96. Finally, 96 plus 54. That gives me 150.